from the Auditor General on procurement at the University of the West Indies, UHWI, revealed repugnant and despicable procurement practices which had the effect of the consolidated fund, our public purse, being deprived of much needed revenue in favor of private companies. The UHWI's tax-exempt status, Mr. President, was utilized in favor of private entities, as reported by the Auditor General, for the acquisition of medical equipment and other supplies. At the center, we answer the question now, Muji. At the center of the tax fraud saga is a company identified by a media house that is the bane of the PNP's existence, as being owned and operated by senior PNP official and first-term Member of Parliament, Mr. Dennis Gordon, with the entity being the Jackden Group of Companies. Mr. President, what can go so? It would interest Julian Robinson, Mark Golding, and the other PNP members to know that, like charity, tax compliance and revenue protection begins at home. Start with the people in the mirror. As they sought to extract political mileage from the Auditor General report regarding UHWI procurement, the opposition PNP convened a press conference on January 29, 2026. Little did they know that the media was on top of their hypocrisy and had a leadership interrogation imperative, because while the PNP sought to focus attention on the reported procurement issues at the UHWI, the media focused attention on Mark Golding's actions, or should I say, lack thereof, given the hat he wears. And I'm not referring to the anti-badman cap the Prime Minister gifted him last week. I'm referring to his position as PNP President and opposition leader vis-a-vis Dennis Gordon's position as his subordinate and one of the persons reportedly embroiled in the UHWI scandal. Can you imagine, Mr. President, even in opposition, the PNP find their way embroiled in scandals? So they have not only had the Manchester Municipal Corporation scandal, they have not only had the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation scandal, they have had the KSAMC hush money scandal, and they have now added the reported Dennis Gordon Jackden Group of Companies tax fraud scandal to their list of scandals, even while in opposition.
1 minute, 1 minute. Senator Brown.
I dare you
Senator
to come
Brown.
and force me to say.
Senator Brown, come
You're
down.
a coward.
Senator Brown, come down.
Yeah. I rise on a point of order. But if that little imbecile is telling me to sit,
Come down. No, it's
I
okay.
want him to come and make me sit.
Come.
Parliamentary, I can't say that. You can't say that.
So, President,
Order. He needs to withdraw that language and description of the
that the
member.
imbecile, that's what you want me to withdraw?
You cannot describe the
You want
member
me
like
to
that.
withdraw the imbecile?
Mr. President,
All right.
Mr.
I
President,
withdraw the imbecile. If Abka Fitzenley want me to sit, tell him to come and force it.
Go ahead. What's your point of order?
Under the standing order, we are not to make improper motive about members of this chamber or the other chamber. The comments about MP Gordon, may I be allowed to make my point of order and say it violates that standing order. And as much as I am prepared to withdraw the imbecile comment, then he should also withdraw the proper motive to which is put. So let me make it clear, President. The only person who can get me to sit is the marshal. Not some loudmouth, bagger, two-mouthed boy from Nationwide.
Senator Brown, control yourself. All right. So hear this now. Hear this now. In order to have a certain amount of equanimity and fairness, if I were to rule that anything said in relation to the member of the lower house was offensive to the standing orders, it would really fly in the face of some of the most disgusting things that many persons on your side have said about the Honorable Prime Minister in this country. Right in this chamber. Over the time, the most disgusting things. So what I'm going to do is just ask Senator Morgan. He has made his point just to move on.
Mr. President, what was intended to be a political point-scoring UHWI press conference backfired immensely on the PNP. It was a complete train wreck, not dissimilar to how history will record that now infamous Jeffrey Epstein-related Newsnight interview between Emily Maitlis of the then BBC, of the BBC at the time, and the then Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom. Like the then Prince Andrew of the UK, Mark Golding bobbed and weaved as he struggled to respond to the questions put to him by the probing and incisive members of the media who were in attendance. Mr. President, in the face of very damning, credible and compelling evidence against Dennis Gordon, insofar as his Jack Den group of companies, PNP President and Opposition Leader Mark Golding
There's not even a court case. And the member is making remarks about a member in the other house that is disparaging, that is contrary to the standing order. And above all, much of what he said is untrue, is conducting a scurrilous campaign, and the Senate deserve better. So, my point of order is that he's violating the improper motive and making disparaging remarks in respect.
The President ruled a while ago.
And I'm making it again because you have repeated it. He has not moved on. And you all must do better. You must all do better.
He was just summarizing.
Senator Morgan, your time is running out, you know, and every time I'm not adding on any time, you know, so you need to just do what you're doing.
Mr. President. Mr. President, the PNP President and Opposition Leader has not taken action against the referenced member in respect of his parliamentary assignments. Let the records show, Mr. President, that again, we on this side are calling for the immediate removal of Mr. Dennis Gordon from Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, PAC, by Opposition Leader Mark Golding. You cannot be auditioning for the highest elected office in the land and be found wanting every time these tests of leadership and issues of moral turpitude arise. To Mr. Mark Golding, I say, sir, your purported commitment to integrity in public life and your call for increased tax compliance ring hollow. Indeed, they are undermined by your failure to act against the referenced member. Mr. President, the financial sector collapse of the 1990s, which many persons have come to refer to loosely as the FinSac debacle, is the PNP's most egregious transgression against the Jamaican people. The PNP is acutely aware that it is so, and they are absolutely embarrassed by it. It is not surprising in this context, President, to note the coordinated and concerted effort at revisionist history throughout the budget debate by PNP officials and their surrogates across traditional and social media. But, Mr. President, you know we are in the business of setting the record straight and mashing down the PNP's lies. The opposition PNP has sought to suggest that it was merely reckless and imprudent action on the part of bankers that caused the collapse of the financial sector in the 1990s. They are so barefaced, brazen, and revisionist as to try and paint FinSAC as a good thing, the solution to the problem they posit. History, however, records that business operators and debtors were not afforded an opportunity to avert loss of their assets, which, in many instances, were made available to others for cents in the dollar, but they were denied the opportunity. They may seek to distort the facts and revise history as much as they want, but let it be known unequivocally that it was policy failure, the poor decisions of the then PNP government, exacerbated, of course, by imprudent financial sector operations, which resulted in the collapse of the financial system and the decimation of our productive sector. I use the word imprudent. Go and check with your ENT. In short, Mr. President, it was the then PNP government's premature liberalization of the foreign exchange market and the unsustainable and ill-advised high interest rate policy that primarily led to the financial sector collapse of the 1990s.
Senator Morgan,
just a minute,
That's
Mr.
you.
President. Just a minute.
What you call a minute? That's you, you know.
That's the time allowed for stoppage, Mr. President.
That's stop
a minute and a half, 90 seconds.
What?
90 seconds, Mr. President.
We're on 90 seconds on the clock, man.
In their coordinated and preemptive bid to take the sting out of the wretched and incontrovertible historical transgression, FinSAC, the PNP has set about deflecting and hoodwinking the Jamaican people, both inside and outside of the parliament. Release the FinSAC report is their cry. Release the FinSAC report is their refrain. However, Auntie Donna just said yes, but watch me now. This past Monday, Mr. President, the 23rd of March, 2026, the election-scarred PNP president and opposition leader Mark Golding appeared on a YouTube program where he was interviewed by one of their social media operatives. The question was put to Mr. Mark Golding as to whether he would release the FinSAC Commission of Inquiry report if he were elected Prime Minister of Jamaica following the next general elections. Mr. President, this was Mark Golding's response, and I quote, "The FinSAC situation is difficult, Andre, because there is no report. There is no report to deliver. They never wrote it. They never completed their report," end quote. He later went on to say the following, Mr. President. What Nigel Clark said he was going to do was establish a website and put all the materials, all the evidential material and so on that were generated by the process of that commission of inquiry. Now the question is, Mr. President, if Mark Golding knows, as the government has long asserted, that there is no FinSAC Commission of Inquiry report, why has he, like Julian Robinson and the other PNP members and supporters, been calling for the release of the quote-unquote FinSAC report? How can a report that doesn't exist be released? What can go so? Oh, what a tangled web they will, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
When at first they practice to deceive.
Thank you. Minister, Thank you very much, Senator Morgan, Senator Thompson.
Mr. President, I plan to be very judicious with my time. But I must say, before I get into my presentation, Mr. President, that and this smiling picture of me is not representative of what I'm about to say. It seems like we're still, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Jamaican people, it seems like we continue to be in election mode. The elections were completed on September 3rd, 2025. And I must remind the members on the opposite side that the reason why some of this discourse takes place, is because we are here today to talk about the appropriations bill. And nobody on the opposite side has sought to speak about the bill. We have the 25-year-old young senator who is not inspiring young people. We have the lecturer who comes here to give a history lesson and doesn't talk about the appropriations bill. And then we have Senator Brown here who is not talking anything about the appropriations bill. So let us refocus on the appropriations bill. I was until you made a statement about the young people in this country not being inspired. And you're a 25-year-old senator. You are a 25-year-old senator with a master's degree, and you are telling me that the young people in this country not inspired. Mr. President, I rise to make my contribution today to the appropriations bill. But I do so with a very clear understanding, and that is, Mr. President, yes, Senator Bernard alluded to that. This is not a debate about figures on a page, nor any allocations across ministries, nor projections of growth. Yes, it is about the country that we are trying to build, and more importantly, how the people are living in the country. Because, Mr. President, when all is said and done, we are trying to change the lives of the Jamaican people, as my learned friend, Senator Bernard, who comes from a very good school, said. The Prime Minister has framed this budget as a movement from resilience to resurgence. And there is no doubt that Jamaica has demonstrated resilience. We have weathered shocks. We have stabilized our macroeconomic environment. We have preserved fiscal discipline. We have restored critical services in the aftermath of disaster. We have maintained investor confidence. We have brought unemployment to historic low levels. We are building, we are recovering, and we are advancing. But, Mr. President, I ask this honorable Senate, and by extension the Jamaican people, are we building a stronger country but leaving our people behind in their health? Nobody has mentioned health, even you who are aligned to health, Lamy. Because there is another reality running alongside our economic story. A quieter reality. Remember, they are hearing what is on my mind. A quieter reality, a more dangerous one, a more costly one. It is not unfolding in headlines. It is unfolding in our clinics, in our dialysis units, and in our homes. All right. So, a nation cannot prosper if its people are unwell. Right. Productivity declines, families are burdened, and the public purse is strained under preventable pressures. Non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases are no longer peripheral concerns. They are now among the leading causes of death and disability in this country. The Ministry of Health and organizations like the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and other NGOs have consistently highlighted that excessive sugar consumption, particularly through sugar-sweetened beverages, is a major contributor
to obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases. And the data is not abstract, Mr. President. Over 75% of Jamaicans consume at least one sugary drink every day. Among adolescents, 69% consume carbonated beverages daily. Each additional sugary drink per day increases a child's risk of obesity by approximately 60%. And the cost, the economic burden alone is staggering. The projected cost of cardiovascular diseases and diabetes alone between 2017 and 2032 is approximately 77.1 billion Jamaican dollars. But treatment costs, lost productivity, and premature mortality. Mr. President, let us pause on that figure. That is not just a health statistic. That is an economic warning. That is a social warning. That is a national warning. Because we are not just treating illness, we are financing its consequences. It is for this reason, and I stand proudly with the Dr. Andrew Michael Holness-led administration, as we understand that health is not incidental to development, it is central to it. Mr. President, because of the massive strides in development that we have experienced under this administration, we can celebrate, and rightly so, the fact that Jamaica is approaching full employment. But employment without health is not sustainable prosperity. A workforce that is chronically ill cannot drive productivity. A family burdened by illness cannot build wealth. A nation overwhelmed by preventable disease cannot sustain growth. So when we speak about economic expansion, we must also speak about human capacity. Because the true engine of this economy is not infrastructure, it is the people. And if our people are unwell, then our progress is hampered. Mr. President, it is in this context that government's decision to reform the special consumption tax must be understood. This is not arbitrary. This is not opportunistic. This is targeted, evidence-based policy. Sugar-sweetened beverages are uniquely harmful. They are the largest source of added sugar in the diet. They provide high calories. Listen, Senator Brown, they provide high calories with little to no nutritional value. They are cheap, widely available, and heavily consumed. More importantly, liquid sugar behaves differently. It is rapidly absorbed, it does not trigger fullness, it leads to excess calorie consumption without awareness, and causes rapid spikes in blood glucose and insulin levels, which can lead to visceral fat production and insulin resistance. A single 355 ml can of soda can contain nearly 9 teaspoons of sugar. We look at the diagram, 1 teaspoon contains 4 grams of sugar, most times exceeding the recommended daily intake in one serving. Mr. President, we are not dealing with a marginal issue. We are dealing with a systemic one. Mr. President, this approach is not new, and it is not experimental. It is grounded in global and regional evidence. In Mexico, sugar drink purchases declined by approximately 9.7% following taxation. In Berkeley, California, similar policies resulted in increased water consumption by approximately 15%. In Barbados, sugary drink sales declined while healthier alternatives increased. The World Health Organization has recommended fiscal measures such as these as key strategies in combating obesity and non-communicable diseases. So the question is not whether this works. The question is whether we are prepared to act. Mr. President, we have heard the argument from the opposition that this measure will burden the poor. Let us examine that carefully. The evidence shows that lower income households consume more sugary drinks. They allocate less of their budget to health and education as a result. They experience a higher burden of non-communicable diseases. So let us be clear. The poorest Jamaican is not burdened by this tax. The poorest Jamaican is burdened by preventable disease. Because illness does not just affect health, it affects income, opportunity, education, and dignity. Doing nothing is not neutral. Doing nothing is a decision. And it is a decision that allows harm. You see, we are caring and listening government. If only you would understand that and listen as well. So let me take a page out of Senator Morgan's book. Listen. And it is a decision that allows harm to continue. If we are serious about changing outcomes, then we must start where the problem begins. And increasingly, that is with our children. A recent survey conducted in 200, and the Minister of Education is here. A recent survey conducted in 103 schools to assess the readiness of schools to implement the National School Nutrition Policy revealed that of over 1,300 beverages being sold to our children, only 23% were compliant with national guidelines. Only 23%. And out of the 203 schools, only one school achieved full compliance to the interim guidelines for beverages, and that was the Cascade Primary and Infant in Buff Bay, Portland. That means the overwhelming majority of children are being exposed daily to high sugar beverages in school environments. Mr. President, we cannot accept that, because the habits formed in childhood become the outcomes of adulthood. So when we act, we are not just addressing today's problem, we are protecting tomorrow's generation. When we fully appreciate the positive direction that this administration is leading our great nation, we will recognize that the government is starting where the evidence is strongest, the consumption is highest, and the harm is greatest. Tackling sugar-sweetened beverages first is not optional. It is the most responsible and effective public health action available to protect our children. Mr. President, this budget demonstrates clearly that the government's approach is not limited to taxation. It contains a comprehensive investment in the health system. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has allocated